Hey y'all, it's April the 10th, 2017, and I got a story to share with y'all today. Story time, alright? Get ready. I got a very important story to share with y'all today. In fact, it's so important that I'm kind of I'm kind of surprised that I haven't shared with y'all this story yet, to be quite honest. I was thinking about it last night, and I thought, you know what? I need to get this out. I need to get this out to the masses, because the thing is, there's people out here who could really use this story. This story can save a lot of people a lot of grief, right, by simply hearing of it and learning lessons the easy way. Learning some lessons the easy way. Now, before I get into the story, I want to remind everybody we are balls deep up in the tribulation. There's going to be a lot of complicated things that arise, a lot of tribulating things that arise in our lives and stuff. And I think we would be well suited to attempt to simplify a lot of these complications that are arising in the world today and stuff. Just simplify. There's some things that are very complicated. They just need to be simplified. Alright, so with that in mind, you gotta already understand that the war on drugs is very real, and it's very complicated, and it's also completely preposterous, and it always has been. Right? If there was a war on drugs, guess who's losing? It's us. We've been losing. So that gets very complicated. However, in order to conquer the world of drugs, in order to not be conquered by the world of drugs, I feel it's imperative to always remember, to always keep it in the back of your mind that hashtag everything is drugs. And when I say everything, I mean everything and everyone that you know. They're all drugs, and you use them like drugs, and you become addicted, and they're habit forming, all that. But you know what? Everything is drugs. There's not anything that makes you feel good that isn't God, that isn't drugs, all right? If it's not God, then it is drugs, is what I'm saying. Hashtag everything is drugs. And I feel like when we can gather around that and we can meditate on that, then it's going to be all too simple. It's going to be all too easy to conquer drugs, to never be enslaved by them. Never. All right, so with that in mind, that's a long introduction to this story, and I got to tell y'all. All right, so just to start it off, I used to be a young man or a young fella back in the day, and at one point, about 6, 7, 8, probably more like 7, 8, 9 years ago, I was living in an apartment with some roommates, 2 to 3 of them, all in one apartment. Right? We did so obviously because financially that was a benefit. We very much needed that. We also wanted our own space in order to do things that young men do. All right. So we got our own apartment, and of course, there's many different stories that can be told from that apartment that would probably be very important to note in the future. But this one particular story I gotta share with y'all today. Alright, so I get home from work, where I was working at, pretty close to the apartment. I get home to notice, quite typically, the house is full. Alright, I mean, not only are my roommates there and some of my friends are there as well, but some strangers are also through the apartment. And you know what? And that's not very unusual when it comes to that apartment, to have strangers in and out of it. So I get home and, I'm wanting to relax as one does. I'm wanting to unwind and things, with my friends and do what it is we do. And so I'm perusing the apartment, looking at all these people, trying to understand what it is that they're trying to do, and try and feel the vibe that's going on, right? So immediately when you walk into the apartment, it isn't much more than a few feet later that you're going to end up either outside or right inside the kitchen area. Right. So when I get into the kitchen area, I notice that there is not only one of my roommates, a couple of them, a couple of my friends, but there's also some strangers that they're hanging out with, that they're chilling with, all right? Ladies, in fact, strange ladies that they're hanging out and chilling with. I didn't really feel very comfortable in that situation necessarily, so what I did was I pretty much bypassed that whole kitchen area, and I went to the living room where there was more people, more roommates, more friends and stuff that, I felt more comfortable around. But before I left the kitchen area, what I gotta explain to you is, like I said, there were strange ladies in the kitchen area, and none of them were particularly all that attractive, which really doesn't bother me very much and stuff. That doesn't exactly get my goat or anything, but I do have to explain that none of the young women in that apartment complex, none of them in that kitchen that day were all too attractive, and so for that reason is another reason why I kind of bypassed that whole thing and went to the living room. But before I went to the living room, what I had to mention is that one of said ladies in the group of strange ladies that was in my kitchen I want to be gentle because a lot of people are going to get offended by this. I mean, I'm not trying to bash anybody. People who are ugly, I can be your friend and we could talk about whatever you want. This lady was ugly. It was like Ripley's Believe It or Not ugly. Alright? It was like Guinness World Record books type of ugly. Like, this lady was ugly in every sort of way physically that you could even think about. I mean, I'm talking about, and like I said, I'm not really trying to be mean, but I'm trying to paint a picture. This lady was like birth defect type of, I mean, just all sort of ugly. Ugly multiplied on top of ugly. Exponentially ugly. And obese. Fatally obese. Alright? What I can explain is, this lady was pushing the envelope as far as ugliness. I mean, her forehead did this number where it comes out and then curves back in, like it's round like this. It doesn't just go whoop, it goes whoop, whoop. I mean, like, her, it was just an anomaly to look at this lady and to, I mean, it was overwhelming, and I couldn't help but notice that. Alright, and I couldn't help but notice before I leave the kitchen area that this particular lady was what you would call the master of ceremonies. I mean, she was the lady with the drugs. I'm talking about the pills, and she had them, and she was not only did she have them, but she was passing them out like candies. Passing them out like candies in the kitchen area, and I noticed it was her in particular that was the one that was the pusher. She was the pusher man, all right, in that situation. And my roommate, God bless him, you know, this dude, he was one to not really turn down pills and drugs and things of this nature, right? So he was gobbling them up. He was gobbling them up like a dang Thanksgiving turkey, these pills and stuff. Not only that, not only was he gobbling them up, he was crushing them up, you know, chopping them up and sniffing them up, as you might be aware of. That is something that people do, sniffing up the pills, which magnify the effect of the pills. All right, so I couldn't help but notice that this this nightmare of a lady, all right, she was passing out pills like it was no tomorrow. I couldn't help but notice that, and so I slip into the living room. I want to get out of that situation about as fast as I can. I make it to the living room where there's more of my friends, more of my roommates and stuff, and pretty much everyone was smoking reefer, just about as hard as they could, alright? I mean, smoking reefer like nobody's business, alright? So that's what we were doing for a while, and as you can imagine, time was going on, nothing much. We weren't doing very much. We were just sitting around having a good time, laughing together and stuff, smoking the reefer, unwinding after our days. Alright, and I had made mention, everybody else was already completely aware of what was going on in the kitchen. We were all completely aware of the types of people who were in the kitchen, what exactly was going on in the kitchen, and that our friend and roommate, who will go unnamed, was also in the kitchen. And he seemed to be getting a little bit carried away, if you will. We all noticed that. Alright? It seemed as though a few of us noticed that, you know, this circus lady, alright? This circus lady, she seemed to have an agenda in mind. It's not as though she was passing out pills like candies for no reason. She absolutely had a reason. She was a stranger, by the way, and so she absolutely did have a reason to be doing that sort of stuff. So just to cut to the chase here, time goes on, a couple hours go on, and we're just kicking it in the living room. We're plenty content in staying in the living room, chilling with our friends, when we notice this, or at least I notice this, and I point this out for everybody else to be aware of. You notice that the circus lady, the morbidly obese circus lady, you notice out of your periphery that she's climbing up the stairs. And I do have to mention that this apartment complex, kind of like a townhome, if you will, had different stories. 2 different stories. My bedroom was downstairs. Everybody else's bedroom was upstairs. Alright, so this lady, this strange lady of just an atrocious type of ugliness, she's climbing up the stairs by herself. Upstairs, and when she has no business up there, I mean, there would be no reason for her to go upstairs at all. There's bathrooms downstairs, you know, there would be absolutely no reason. So we took note of that. We said, you know what, this outrageously, frustratingly ugly lady is going upstairs right now, and I wonder why that is. It wasn't more than a couple minutes later that you see our friend and roommate, our beloved friend and roommate, desperately climbing his way upstairs, like basically pulling his own self up the stairs. I mean, he was just about as gone as he could be off of these powders that he'd done sniffed up. He's just about as gone as he could be while still standing up. And so he managed to pull, using the railway and everything, pull his self up the stairs. For what reason? You know, I took notice of it. Everybody else took notice of it. We saw him going up the stairs. Now, it was only him and Big Mama, alright, lady from the circus. It was only them two upstairs. For what reason? Why would they be up there? Why would they be up there? We were pondering these sort of things. We all kind of knew the answer to these questions. And after a few minutes, I went ahead and got the nerve because, you know what? I have to admit that curiosity done killed my cat. And so I had to go upstairs. I found myself going upstairs because I wanted to know. I wanted to know what was going on. Somebody had to witness what in the world was happening upstairs. So I go upstairs and, you know, to my delight, all the bedroom doors were closed, to include my roommates. Alright, the one extremely gone off of the pills. His door was closed as well, and I noticed that. I said, well, you know what, they must be up in his room and the door is closed. And I wonder what exactly could they be doing up in there. And so now everybody should probably already be realizing at this point in the story what exactly they're doing in there. It should be dawning on you what exactly this lady's agenda was from square one. That she had a plan. She knew exactly how she was going to implement it by handing out little pills like candies and tricking someone. And that's how you have to describe it, because nobody would do something with this lady unless they were tricked, or absolutely the most desperate person I ever met. So the door is closed, right? Can't say anything, which is I'm still thankful for to this day, but curiosity was getting at me, and so this is what I did. I went to the door. I went straight up to the door, very quietly, very cautiously. I didn't want anybody to know of my presence. I go up to the door very slowly and tell you what I heard. Not a big truck. This is what I heard. As I put my ear, so to speak, to the door and listened very carefully, I heard this. I heard the circus lady referring to my roommate as daddy and encouraging him in whatever he was doing at the time, all the while hearing this. Alright? So I walked down the stairs completely befuddled and simply amazed. And I walked down the stairs and I let everybody know the news of what I heard through the bedroom door upstairs regarding a circus lady and our roommate. And I told them, this is what I heard. That's what I heard. I let them know. And so that's not the end of the story, to be honest with you. I mean, that is the climax of the story, if you will. But later on the next morning, we kind of find out, because everybody crashes out. We kind of forget about that situation. Later on the next morning, circus lady's gone. All her friends are gone. Just completely out of there and stuff, out of town. And our friend, our roommate, he stumbles out of his room. Completely gone. I mean, still completely gone. Like, you know what I'm saying? Couldn't barely walk. In fact, at one point, as he's coming down the stairs, he opts to not take any of the stairs and basically jump. Not very successfully, but leaps down the stairs, slams into the wall that's opposite of the stairs, and pulls himself back up. He was still quite out of it the next morning. Alright, and I forget who, but someone took it on their behalf to go ahead and let him know exactly what he was up to the previous night, because obviously he ain't gonna remember. Now the thing is about this particular roommate is, just to be brief, he's a very good fighter. He was known for fighting and stuff like that. So he's not one of these people that you want to irk and continue to irk for no reason, all right? So one of his friends tells him, you know what? You smashed. Not only did you smash Papas with this circus lady, but pretty sure you did it unprotected, because you didn't have protection. There was no protection to speak of. So that is what you did. And people let him know that is what he did. He did not believe it. He did not want to believe it. All right? In fact, he grew violent at the idea. Like, he grew very confrontational. And in fact, at one point, he asked me to tell him. He said, tell me that everybody's lying. That I did not have relations with this circus lady upstairs last night. Tell me that that's not so. To which I said nothing. There was nothing that I could say. I just told him nothing. I was like, dude, I'm not going to say anything. Right? You believe what you want to believe. But as you could tell, this young man he wasn't pleased with his actions at all. In fact, he was so terrified with his own actions that he did not want to believe them the next day. Alright. It's a pretty long story, I know, but I think it's quite significant in that, like we said at the beginning, everything is drugs. All right. And when we don't meditate on this simple fact, we'll find that, it's quite possible. In fact, it's pretty easy to get tricked into situations that you didn't want to be a part of. Not at all. Forget the fact that these chemical powders and things and potions, forget the fact that they could be potentially deadly. People don't really care. Forget the fact that you can go to jail for doing them and selling them and having them. People don't really care. They're still going to do it. They're still going to do these chemical powders and things and potions. All right. But I want everybody to remember that this guy absolutely, positively, immediately regretted what he had done the night before. Why? Because of drugs. Drugs got him. Drugs got him all crazy in his head. Drugs blinded him to the fact that he was smashing away on something that I wouldn't touch with a 20-foot pole. All right, and it's very easy. It could happen to any one of us. All right, and another lesson to be learned is this: if you are going to get into these pills and these powders and these potions and these other drugs, if you are going to do it, me personally, like I said, everything is drugs. I'm not in a position to judge you for that necessarily, but here's what I want to impart to you as a friend. Here's what I want to tell you. If you want to get into these powders and these pills and these drugs, ain't nobody gonna stop you. I'm not trying to stop you out here, but I want to give you some advice. My advice is this: have a lot of those drugs. Go ahead and invest money and get a lot of them. And the reason is for this, because you're gonna do them. If you know you're gonna do them, go ahead and get them. Get a lot of them, because see, the thing is, when you run out of them, that is the problem. Running out of these drugs actually is the problem. The fiending that takes place when you want these drugs and you don't have them, that is the problem. That'll put you in a pretty precarious situation, and that you'll be willing to take these chemical drugs, these powders and potions. You'll be willing to accept them from circus people, from anybody, dude, and you won't question it at all. You'll just want the drugs, and meanwhile, once you're all doped up off those drugs, guess what? You're going to be taken advantage of quick fast. All right, so that is a second lesson to be learned. If you're going to have these drugs, get them, get a lot of them. All right, do not ever be fiending for the drugs. Don't run out of the drugs and put yourself in a situation of desperation, which is what most people do out here, because they don't have no money, or they don't know what it is to invest, and they put themselves in very dangerous situations, extremely dangerous situations. Why? Because they're fiending for these drugs. Everybody, I think it's important that we meditate on the fact that hashtag everything is drugs, and that's how we're going to conquer drugs. And at the same time, fiending for drugs so hard that you'll be willing to take them from just about anybody. That's a terrible idea. That's a terrible situation to put yourself in. All right, you're going to mess up. Something like my friend. Hopefully, you won't run into this circus lady with the popped out forehead. Hopefully, you'll never meet her. But the thing is, safety first. Safety first in the tribulation. And we're both deep, y'all. It's April the 10th, 2017. I'll have to holler at y'all later.